Miranda, it is so nice to meet you, and thank you so much for doing this interview with me. And congratulations on being part of this program. We're going to talk about music, your career, the arts, a lot of things. But before we go into any of that, how are you doing, and how have you been during this last, year and a half with, as we all like to call it, the new world?
That's a meaty question to kick it all off. No, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to hang out with you and get to chat. Right now, I'm doing wonderfully. I think I'm just relishing in the opportunities that are available in this moment and soaking it up and just trying to be present for all of it. And as I think we all know, they had disappeared for a while, and that was really tough last year. It was a hard year, I think, for everyone collectively. We all had our struggles, but for sure for live performers, that was a hard one. So I'm kind of just soaking up what I can make happen in this moment, and I think that's sort of just where my mindset has been at, is really like hyper present. And just taking it all in. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you've been able to do that because, of course, you're part of that very small group of people. First up with CRBC Music Program. Congratulations being part of that. For folks who don't know exactly what this program is, what is it and why is it so important as being part of this for your career?
Yeah. So first up with RBCxMusic is a program that kind of gives way for emerging Canadian artists to have access to exposure and funding and mentorship opportunities, that was created to help emerging recording artists continue to hone their craft, but sort of in wake of COVID, those opportunities became ever more precious. And I think for myself as an artist, I've just been so grateful to be able to connect with people in the industry in this time that we can't, go out to shows and network in the ways that we're used to. We can't have that type of cross connection. So I think to have RBCxMusic come up and sort of bridge the gap in a lot of different ways has really been a blessing and has massively affected my last year for sure. So I'm super grateful for that.
What do you think? If there's one thing that you have learned from this program that maybe you didn't know before, what would it be and why?
That's a great question. One thing that I learned that I didn't know before would be that we are incredibly resilient as people, and I think this is one of those moments that reinforced the fact that if we are driven to connect, we can find ways. And we live at a time in society where we have this option. We can utilize the tools we have at our disposal to still create meaningful connection and to still create art and beauty. And I think first up with RBCxMusic has sort of reinforced that for me in the Canadian music scene, that we can, as creators, still come together and find ways to connect. And I think I've sort of always had that floating in my mind, but this was a very humble reminder of the real truth of that.
Art, beauty, creativity. That really is describing you, because when I've checked out your stuff in the past and what you're doing now, because we are going to talk about new music, um, you really, you are a great definition of, people can say music is music, but you are a definition of music is art. Where did that come from growing up? Because you went from Montreal to Vancouver, but somewhere in between, something connected those two elements together.
First of all, thank you. That's so nice to hear. I appreciate those words. I think I've always just been drawn to it. I was um, not from a musical household, but from a household that did encourage creativity. And I think the seeds of that were planted at a young age, and I was always encouraged to be expressive. And in the straight, I was actually a pretty shy kid. My brother really teased me out of my shell with that one. And once that cat was out of the bag, there's really no putting it back. But Montreal is such a wonderfully quirky and creative city. And then Vancouver is such a like geographical wonder. It's just natural and majestic beauty. And I think some being somewhere between those two places at all times, having, you know, family in both and always going back and forth, fostered just an interesting reverence between, I think, human made art and beauty and the natural world art and beauty, and always having that parallel maybe has helped foster that within myself, or the continued pursuit of that, for sure.
When it comes to music, though, lyrically, what were you writing growing up, and who were your inspirations growing up too?
Lyrically, I've always been driven by the story. So I do think lyric writing has always was this wonderful um, gateway for me to say all the things that I couldn't or I didn't feel comfortable saying, uh, that I kept hidden in my journals. I feel like I was always a journaler and diary keeper and the whole thing. And I think when I made the connection that I could take those words and then transform them into lyrics, it was just, you know, blew the doors wide open for me to express myself in this way. And so I think lyrically, I'm always coming from that place of feeling where none of it is for nothing. There's a reason behind all of it, and it's very much driven by what I've felt and experienced. Um, and growing up, musically, I mean, okay, I was Disney, you know, as a kid. I was all the Disney. I was Disney sing along. I was, you know, locked up in my grandma's room under the sea,
Oh my goodness,
trying
high
to be
school.
a
What do I hear? High School Musical song suddenly popping in my head or something.
that I loved in high school. I loved musicals. I was like the target audience for all that girl and boy band pop of like Spice Girls, Backstreet, NSYNC, Destiny's Child, TLC. That was like all my time. So I listened to a lot of that. And then in high school, I feel the gateway for like lyricism and musicality and that sort of art meets music. Stevie Wonder was like my mind blowing person who I think
Okay,
is just
and I apologize because I need to jump in very quickly. One, for the last couple of weeks, I don't know what it is, but I've been like doing a resurgence with Stevie Wonder, and all I'm listening to in the car is Stevie Wonder, like over and over and over again, like it's crazy. But what you just said, though, about bringing up the artists that you have, is that why when it comes to the beats with you, this goes back to the arts? It's not just a boom, boom, boom. You stick in the beat, but then there's something majestic in that. Where does that come from?
I love that. I'm gonna start calling you now, being like, "What do you think about this song?" Um, I think, well, so I did study jazz in university. Was like my my big. I had the option in Canada of if we wanted to pursue a path in music post secondary was like classical or jazz, and I was like, well, I don't know anything about classical music. I did not come from a like academic upbringing with music at all. So I was like, well, jazz is at the foundation of all the music that I really love, so I should probably go and learn. And I learned a lot. And I think one of the things that gave me for sure was a more in-depth understanding of harmony. And so I think maybe that's part of that, as well as connection to the spirit of improvisation. And I think that has given me a lot of freedom in my life, but also in my art and music, that no moment is necessarily too precious. Like we're here to create and to be free in that. And I try to preserve that in my life and when I make music, that it's story driven versus like, oh, this is my sound, so it's got to stay in this box, versus like, what is the story trying to say and how can I best bring that to life with the people that I'm working with.
That makes so much sense. I'm just curious, have you ever done a performance where it has been sort of improv, amazing, but you've never been able to duplicate again and would not even attempt it because it was perfect just the way it was?
Well, so one of my favorite things in is this, I love jam sessions. I have sung many times at this wonderful jam session in New York City called Layer Rhythm. and it is fully improvised, and it's actually driven by the dancers. So it's a dance jam, and then there's a house band, and then us as a house band take cues, sort of like a Whose Line Is It Anyway, from the audience for like words, or what words do we then? Someone's like spaghetti moon space flight, and you're like, shh, okay. And then, or who's gonna start? The drummer's gonna start, the vocalist is gonna start. What's the vibe? Or like you as the musicians are there in service of the dancers to follow the movement, and it's all improvised, and I'm coming up with lyrics and melodies and stuff on the spot, and it's a blast. I love it. And it is one of those things where the magic of every moment feels untouchable. You just can't. Like, I could maybe be recording the whole time and then try and like parse out bits for to flesh them out into real pieces, but I feel like in those moments it's about that connection, and so that's what I'm trying to capture.
That explains so much about your music. That all the jazz that makes so much sense. You've actually had the opportunity to share the stage with some really big artists. Who have you shared the stage with?
I've done some very cool performances singing backgrounds for a lot of the cast of Hamilton who can sing their faces off. Oh my gosh. I've done some stuff for singing for Andy Grammer. I did a little background stint with Shawn Mendes, Canada. And then that song that was viral with that Surf Mesa. He had that
Yeah.
where like I almost don't even want to sing it so that nobody has it stuck in their head, because they finally have been freed. They've been freed from the madness of having it stuck in their head. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to create. But I will say I also love just playing with like my peers. They're all rock stars in my mind.
Let's talk about one of your latest singles right now, because when you use the term madness is the perfect example. Alter ego, pastries, and great beats. Can you explain why all these three elements, and in French to even put it better too, can you explain why all these elements are to get, sorry, one last thing, a disco ball. We got to throw that in there too. Why are all these elements together? And please explain to the folks who are going, what the hell is he talking about? It's a new single and it's a new video.
I feel like the short answer is why not? All of those things sound amazing. But so yes, my latest single is this short kind of electronic bop called Dans Ma Poche, which is in French and it means in my pocket. And it was actually born out of an inside joke between my brother and I. We joke a lot, and we were just messing around with this idea of this like kind of snobbish Euro DJ who only wants the finest things in their pocket. And, you know, for myself, but also for DJ Nani, that those things are family, friends, and really great pastries. And so all those things just like came up, and we would joke about it. We joked about it for like a year, and then I was in a session, I brought it up, and we made it. And then it turned into this whole kind of hilarious world. But yeah, it's like a French electronic song, and it was a blast to make. I just think about making all of it, including the album art, which is this big disco ball with me in like a suit. Every moment was fun, and I feel like that's a very lucky way to reflect on your creativity.
When you talk about creativity, you had to be creative during the pandemic. How did you get this video done during this time?
Well, that video actually came together recently. So some of like a lot of the restrictions were different, as things are changing now again. But yeah, it was at a time where there was definitely a gap to have a bit more freedom with the way that we created. However, there was a moment we were talking about having other people in the video with me, and it just logistically was too complicated. So I am the only person in the video with a short cameo from a studio cat at the very top. But yeah, so I would say that was one of the parameters, was like, let's keep it simple. I'll just be the person in it. And then there was a little more freedom to create with some of the restrictions having lifted.
Amazing.
And it was so fun to do it.
It's fun to watch. It is fun to watch. And I'm actually hoping that somehow this can be a trilogy or something, because I feel like there's more to the story with this as we open up. So crossing fingers. As we open up too, what is happening with shows? Virtual, live shows? Will you be traveling? What's going on?
Yes, live shows for sure, and traveling. I really want to come play in Toronto. I've never performed in Toronto. So that's like super high on my list. It feels amazing to perform again. And yeah, so I'm playing a show in New York City, September 3rd, with a band. Can't wait. And have a few other things planned. I wrote this EP called Still, which was the first thing I put out in 2017 under Miranda Joan. And I want to do like a recreation of it. It's a 5-song EP. And we want to do a recreation, myself and this other woman, with strings. So like do a whole kind of orchestrated version. And putting out more music. Like I'm one of the lucky artists who found it very easy to write about all kinds of stuff this year. So for me, my life is just producing music, releasing music, and doing as much live performance as possible.
And of course, breaking boundaries, because that's exactly what you do visually and what we hear. Congratulations on the success. Congratulations being part of the program. Looking forward to new music. Crossing fingers you do come to Toronto. And when you do, let's hope that we can do this interview in person. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Rudy. It's been so fun hanging out. I'm for real gonna be like hitting you up for some hype when I when I need it. But it's been such a pleasure. I can't wait to do it in person. It will happen. It's just gonna be a matter of time. So I can't wait, and I can't wait to play in Toronto. And yeah, thank you so much.